Good evening, everyone, church family. It is a privilege and it's a blessing that I get this opportunity to share. Thank you. To share health seminar, even though probably just very short, but hopefully by the grace of God, we will have beneficial from this short seminar. So I chose the topic, the importance of sleep. Some may think that this is just some basic health topic that probably a lot of people know. However, based on my work experiences, whether as a general physician back in Indonesia or as a family nurse practitioner working at the primary care clinic here, or as a bed ICU nurse for almost 10 years, one of the most common complaints from patients is this: I have sleep problem. Can I take medication for it? Maybe you guys are familiar with this probably statement questions too. However, it's not that simple. There are different underlying causes of sleep problems, and we need to understand really what the process of sleep, what is really, the role of sleep for our body and our health. So for this seminar, we will learn and understand about the role of sleep and the definition of quality sleep. It's not just like any type of sleep that we call it sleep, but a real sleep, which is quality sleep. And we will also review briefly the sleep process, which is including the sleep process that involves sleep stages and sleep mechanisms, as well as what really happens in our body while we are asleep at night. Then we will also discuss sleep hygiene, which is ways that can help us to get a better sleep experience. And then lastly, we will just briefly talk about one of the most common sleep disorders related to breathing. And I bet when we talk about it later, everyone will recognize that disorder, and it is pretty common among us. And why it is important to know and what we need to do about it. So let's understand about sleep. Sleep is an important routine for our daily life, and it is as important, as essential as food and water for us to survive. However, we all recognize that in modern, fast-paced life, like here, I would say in America, a lot of our sleep patterns have been, changed, disturbed, and because often we prefer work and technology rather than rest. However, maybe some of us will argue, well, some of us do not really have that many choices, but working at nighttime because of different family dynamics. And I can testify actually to that, because working in the ICU and having small kids, it would be probably more practical for me to work during nights, and then I could go home, sleep, and then take care of my kids. But when I have had the choice to really change that pattern, so I decided to go back to graduate school so I could get a job during the daytime, if we have that options. But I do understand some of us do not have that options. So now let's learn about the role of sleep. So sleep is basically essential for maintaining both our physical and mental health. It helps our body to recover, and it boosts our immune system and it improves cognitive functions like our memory and our focus. So with consistent quality sleep, it will also support our emotional well-being and reduces a lot of chronic diseases. In the Bible, there are several verses that talks about sleep, and I choose this one first. It says, "When you lie down, you will not be afraid. When you lie down, your sleep will be sweet." Proverbs 3:24. So notice the last part of the verse. Your sleep will be sweet. This statement seemingly talk about quality of sleep, which is with proper position and without any fear or distress. So the proper position here that's being said is lying down, right? Preferably in bed, comfortably. We're not talking about the type of sleep when you're sitting while falling asleep during a travel or during working and you fall asleep, or in class. We're not talking about that type of sleep. We're talking about the real sleep when you're lying down comfortably in your bed. It's not like Indo would call it tidur ayam. That's not what we're talking about. It's very light sleep. All right, now to understand more about sleeps, let's talk about sleep stages. So there are two basic types of sleep, or a mode of sleep. The first one, it's called REM, or rapid eye movement, and the other one is non-REM, or non-rapid eye movement. So if you look at the diagram, the chart, you can see there's a phase of light sleep, deep sleep, and the vivid dreaming. So under light sleep, we have the stage 1 of non-REM sleep and 1, which basically a changeover from, being awake during the day to, preparing us to sleep. And during this time, this is a very period, relatively light sleep. Our heartbeat, our breathing rate starts to slow, and our eye movement slowing down too. Our muscle relaxes with occasional just, probably a little bit of twitches here and there. And then our brain waves begin to slow from, very active daytime mode, wakefulness patterns, to really winding down. And this stage usually lasts only for several minutes. Now, on this next stage, N2, this is like a light sleep before we enter the deeper sleep on N3. This makes our heartbeat and breathing even slower and muscle relax even further. And here, our body temperature drops, and finally, our eye movement stops completely. Our brainwave activity, though, slows. However, there is a markedly increased and significant electrical activity in our brain, because it is actually preparing our brain to get into N3, which we will be talking in a moment. Now we go to N3, stage 3 of non-REM sleep. This is the period of deep sleep that we really need to feel refreshed when we wake up in the morning. And this stage occurs in longer periods during the first half of the night's sleep. Our heartbeat, breathing slow down to the lowest points during this sleep. Our muscles are relaxed, and usually it will be very difficult to wake us up at this deep sleep stage. And of course, our brain waves will become even slower. Now, we go to the next stage, which is REM sleep. It is called rapid eye movement stage because usually at this stage, our eyes actually moved rapidly from side to side. There's actually a term that we call nystagmus, but that's when you are awake, your eyes is open and your eyes going left and right. Sometimes you have neurological problem with that, or issues with balance. But for rapid eye movement sleep, it happens with your eyelid closed and your eyes are moving left and right. And you know what happened during that time? Actually, there are mixed frequency of brainwave activities that becomes closer to that what we see while we are awake. So it looks like our brain is actually active like we are awake, but we are sleeping. And you know what happened? That's when we are having vivid dreams. That's when we have nightmares. We're running and being chased by someone. But sometimes we cannot do anything. We feel like, oh my goodness, we feel so trapped. We cannot get ourselves released. Or sometimes we dream about falling from like a high building and we couldn't do anything. We cannot hold on to something to save ourselves. Because what happened? During this stage, our muscles get temporarily paralyzed. That's like the reality. We cannot really move because the muscles get paralyzed temporarily. That is actually helping us and prevents us from acting out our dreams. Otherwise, you know what could happen? Maybe we could jump out from the bed, or maybe we could just slam things around. This happens with other sleep disorders, which will not be covered during this seminar. So the other fact about REM sleep is as we get old, we are spending less of your time in REM sleep. So less vivid dreaming for older people. I don't know if that is a good thing or bad thing, but that's just what has been found. So now let's see, what is the functions of sleep stages? So light sleep function, it helps the body to relax because we were awake the whole day and serve as the transition to deeper sleep stages and preparing us for restorative rest during the night. And then the deep sleep. It is important because it will help us to have physical restoration, allowing our muscles, tissues, and cells to repair and rejuvenate. And then the last one that we talk about, REM sleep actually has an essential role because it helps our brain for memory and learning. It actually helps our brain to process emotions and information from the day, what has happened during the day while we are awake. So now, the reason why it is usually recommended to get 7 to 9 hours of sleep, because that's thought to give us really the optimum number of REM cycles in our sleep. So non-REM cycles that we talked about before and REM cycles comes about 90 minutes or so half an hour or so, And then so that's why we need the duration of 7 to 9 hours, because we want to get at least 4 cycles of REM stage for our body to really get the beneficial of quality sleep. So potentially, the longer we sleep, the more REM cycles we're going to get, and that's going to have a major benefits of restoration to our brain and our memories and our overall cognitive ability. Now let's learn about sleep mechanisms. So there are 2 internal sleep mechanisms, which is called circadian rhythm and homeostasis. So circadian rhythms basically direct a wide variety of function, from daily changes in our wakefulness, being awake and then sleeping, to our body temperature and metabolism and the release of certain hormones. They also cause us to be sleepy and can wake us up in the morning without really an alarm. Like automatically we would just awake, And then the brain uses what's called neurotransmitters to initiate the sleep and transition between those sleep stages that we talked about, the non-REM and the REM stages. The second mechanism is sleep-wake homeostasis, which keeps track of your need of sleep. So homeostasis refers to keeping a balance of system. And then, so the homeostatic sleep drive reminds our body to sleep after actually being awake for long hours, and even more deeply after we do not sleep for, let's say, more than 12 to 20 hours. So this is just a diagram of the circadian rhythms. You see, as we talk about it, it actually regulates the body temperature. It also regulates the hormone, melatonin hormone. So our body's biological clock is based on a 24-hour day and controls most circadian rhythms. And these rhythms affect, as I mentioned, body temperature, the white line, and then melatonin, the yellow line. And the peaks and valleys of melatonin are important for matching our body's circadian rhythms to the external cycle of light and darkness. So the melatonin will work better when it's actually dark. Now, night shift workers actually often have trouble falling asleep when they go to bed. Even though you say, okay, I work at night and I will sleep during the day. But you will still have problem to fall asleep during the day because guess what? Our body is not designed like that. You have a circadian rhythm that actually really creates your body to sleep at night, not during the day. So you cannot really replace quality of sleep during the daytime. And then, so they also have trouble staying awake at work because, the natural circadian rhythm and sleep-wake cycle is disrupted. It's the same case as getting a jet lag, basically, because the external clock, which is, the clock or the watch that we see outside, is different from our internal clock, which is the circadian rhythm. And this can cause sleep disorder, mood changes, and impaired cognitive function. Now, let's talk what is about quality of sleep. This would involve actually uninterrupted restorative rest that allows the body and mind to recover. So there is a difference between falling asleep and stay asleep. For some people, it's easy to fall asleep, but then it's difficult to maintain the sleep. You will wake up a couple times during the sleep, and that's not quality sleep. Or some people have difficulty falling asleep first, but then when they fall asleep, they can maintain it for hours, which is still not a good quality sleep as well. So sign of quality sleep would be you would feel really refreshed when you wake up in the morning, and you will have stable energy throughout the day with improved mood and cognitive functions. You're not going to be really cranky, not going to be really easily to be depressed and sort of things. So now what happened really during the quality sleep? So we will have cellular maintenance and regenerations because tissues are repaired, muscles grows, and inflammation is reduced. And we also have brain cleanup and maintenance because there is a system called glymphatic that clearing the waste products and toxins in our brain that's being built up during the day when we are awake. And of course, there will be creation of new connections of neuron that will strengthen our memory and learning. And then also there will be a release of hormones. We talk about growth hormone, we talk about melatonin, and about cortisol. Of course, growth hormones will promote our tissue repair and cell production. Melatonin will help us with our sleep cycle. But it also helps, it's a powerful antioxidant, melatonin. And cortisol, its level actually naturally decreases during the night and will help us to create optimal environment for anti-inflammatory process to occur. Now, the effects on organ system with sleep. So first system is cardiovascular system or circulatory system and heart system. While we are asleep, our blood pressure and our heart rate will drop, especially when we enter that stage of non-REM sleep. And this is because it is regulated by what's called parasympathetic system that controls our body during sleep, so we don't really work hard as it is when we are awake. And during REM sleep and waking, because remember the brain activity during the REM sleep, it's kind of like working hard, like when we are awake, even though we were sleeping. That's when our sympathetic system kicks in, where it actually increases our heart rate and blood pressure. So remember, we were sleeping during REM stages, but our brain working hard, our heart rate, our breathing is working fast. That's why we have that wild nightmare during that REM sleep. Now, so people who do not sleep enough or wake up often during the night have a higher risk of chronic diseases like coronary artery disease, hypertension, obesity, and stroke. Now, let's see its effects on metabolism. So the way our body handles fat varies according to various circadian clocks, including those fat in the liver, the fat tissue, and muscles. So our body may handle, fat differently if we eat at unusual times. Some people eat at nighttime. So maybe it cannot be metabolized as effective as during the day. So this can lead to higher levels of hunger hormones and decreased response to insulin, increased food consumption, especially fatty, sweet, and salty foods, and decreased physical activity and metabolic syndrome that could lead to obesity, diabetes, and metabolic syndrome. And then it affects on the immune system. So we have cytokines, which are proteins that target infection and inflammations. And this will help our immune system fight off pathogens. And then there's also there's also cellular defense, which is the T cells and other immune cells that will be supported during the good sleep to detect and destroy harmful invaders. And then we also have productions of more antibodies, especially in response to vaccination and making them more effective. And then we have the hormone balance, like we talk about growth hormone, prolactin, and cortisol, that can help reduces stress hormones and that can suppress immunity. Now, the last system is respiratory system. When we sleep, respiratory rate and oxygen consumption drop during the sleep. And this can cause, inflammation of our airway and lungs and making breathing harder and having worsening symptoms like coughing or shortness of breath. And it also can impair the clearance of our lung and our, airway, which can cause airway irritation from that buildup. And then there is exaggerated sensation of air hunger, like trying to catch up with breathing during the night. However, on the other hand, the symptoms of certain respiratory problems can be actually worsened during deep sleep, like asthma, like chronic obstructive, pulmonary disease, COPD, and of course, the obstructive sleep apnea that we will briefly talk about the next slide. So people who snores at night sometimes ignores the symptoms. They said because we are just tired, maybe because of the position while we are sleeping. If I change my position, I will be fine. Please do not ignore that, because chronic symptoms of snoring could be actually obstructive sleep apnea. So during the time while we sleep and we have obstructive sleep apnea, we will not be sleeping really good because we will be keeping awake at all times, leading to poor sleep quality and health risks. So the common system, you cannot ask the person actually. You would ask the person who sleeps with them. Because the person who has that snoring, they would say, no, I don't snore. But then the person who sleeps with them can be a witness that you do actually have that difficulty of sleeping because you were catching your breath after snoring. So this can actually lead to frequent awakening, daytime fatigue, and affecting daily life and well-being. And guess what? Early diagnosis and intervention are vital to avoid serious complications like hypertension, heart disease, and stroke. And my husband, Victor, can testify to that because he had a very serious issue with obstructive sleep apnea that caused actually chronic hypertension that his doctor's team could not really figure out why at such a young age he has a very difficult to treat hypertension, and they figured out that he has a very severe obstructive sleep apnea that he had to actually get a reconstruction of his airway. like a major surgery to fix that. So hopefully, if we know somebody that has snoring issues, please get early diagnosis so we can take care of it as soon as possible. And then lastly, for those who doesn't have medical, problem that is underlying your sleeping problem, like, that obstructive sleep apnea, let's try to practice good sleep hygiene that can help us to have a better sleep experience. So consistent sleep schedule. Try to go to sleep at the same time every night and wake up at the same time. That will really regulate our internal clock. And then try to do something relaxing before bedtime. Reading, listening to music. Just avoid something crazy, before you go to bed. It's kind of like prepare you for your body. And then let's create optimal sleep environment. Like some people don't like to sleep in the dark. I do. But dark, quiet, comfortable bedroom without distractions encourages deeper and more restful sleep. And let's try to limit stimulants and electronics. Please do not put your TV in your bedroom because that's actually really a temptation for you to watch until late at night, and then avoid, stimulants like caffeine before nighttime. Oops, sorry. This is the last slide. Last but most importantly, is for us to taking the time to pray before sleep. Let's cast all our worries and concerns to God. Like in Psalm 4:8, it says, "In peace I will lie down and sleep, for you alone, Lord, make me dwell in safety." This verse really reflects a moment of trust in God, despite facing maybe anxiety and fears of the future. And only with Him we can always find peace and safety, which will also help to enable us to have good quality of sleep and overall, cognitive and physical well-being. So may this short seminar will be helpful and useful for us. Thank you and God bless.